Welcome to the Civic Circus Podcast. I am Spencer Duncan.
And I am Cath Terrell, owner and founder of Mama T James Jellies.
Let's start the show.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So you and I don't know each other. I mean, we don't know each other well. I blind emailed you and said, hey, you want to come on here? And then out of the blue, we were at the same place last week, just randomly, hey, nice to meet you. But you said something to me that I started thinking about. You said, and I won't say who said it to you, but you said someone said to you, why are you going on that podcast with these politicians these days? It could, and I had two thoughts after that. I thought, first of all, that is a totally rational and legitimate concern in this day and age for everyone to have. And then my second thought was how sad it is that is the totally rational and legitimate thought for someone to have when they just want to come do one of these things.
I agree. I think the state of our nationally speaking, the state of our politics is so divisive, and people are scared and people are being hurt by certain, political decisions. It's hard to know who to trust. Yeah. And so I think, my whole time growing up, politics was always kind of a divisive thing, but I feel like that's been magnified this day and age. And so that person who asked me that question is someone that I'm very close to, who cares about me deeply. And I think all they could think of was, what are they going to say to you? What are they going to do to you? And I was just like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, but it's fair. Like I said, it is fair because there's so much now out there, and it's just the Wild West these days of what, but we don't have anyone hiding in the couch. We're not, I'm not going to Jerry Springer or, Maury.
I had to remind,
here's why we really brought you here.
I had to remind them, you're talking to Mama T. I could handle myself.
That's right. Well, and we will talk about, I tell people, we'll put the spotlight on you here in a little bit. We start every show, though, with just a couple topics of the week, that kind of things the council are talking about. And you can weigh in as much or as little as you want. But the first one is, this week we're getting a presentation on riverfront development for as long as I can remember. And I grew up here, but at least for the last couple of decades, there's been a lot of talk about riverfront development out there. And in theory, it's a good idea. I think the problem is, it's like everything. Who's going to pay for it? And so it looks great when you see the drawings, and I think it's great, but I don't have the money as a city, right? We got potholes and we've got other issues out there. And so we'll see what the presentation says. So I don't know if you've paid attention through the years to the riverfront development talks. And
I've heard bits and pieces, and I've been in circles where there's been discussions about it. I've read a little bit about it. I know it's expensive, but if there is any way that the city of Topeka could pull this off, it excites me. Yeah. It excites me. So I don't know if I told you this before, but I'm a teacher in my
I'm going to ask you
about
my normal
life.
I got questions about that.
And so I always hear kids saying, "Oh, Topeka's boring. I can't wait to get out of here. I can't wait to get out." And I'm just like, the stuff that is happening right now. I was just telling my husband this morning. I was like, there is cool stuff happening in the city of Topeka. I said, and it's not just good for tourism. I mean, it is, but it's good for the people that live here. I want my students to be proud of where they
come
live.
Back. Even if they go to college or go to trade school, at least someday come back here. Don't just want to leave Topeka.
I'm not even from Kansas. I'm originally from Oklahoma, but I love the city of Topeka, and I plan on staying here until the good Lord takes me home. I don't know.
I think if we do develop that, it's going to take all four units of government to make it happen. We are the capital city. I think the state needs to make an investment. There's going to have to be something from the city. The county is going to have to invest. And then it's going to take private investment. I mean, I don't think it can be 100% just the government entities. I think you're going to have some commitment from people who want to build apartments and retail up there so that you have some base. Because if you develop it, but then nobody moves there or wants to put in anything there, it's kind of like, it looks great, but it's not doing anything. And so I think that's what we'll need to make.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, I think that's good because when you get the more, facets, the more representation that's involved, the more likely that it's going to be a success because people have they have skin in the game. Yeah. And we need everybody to have skin in the game to make our city an even better place than it already is. That's how I see it.
Yeah, no. So I'll be fascinated. Everyone will be able to watch that presentation. It's always replays or online. If they want to go back and watch whatever it is the Riverfront folks are going to tell us this week in our meetings.
Well, I'll get my popcorn ready.
That's right. The second thing is I changed it a little. I think I told you it was going to be one thing. Sorry, I'll throw you a loop. But the other is I do want to. We're going to talk a little bit later about you as a teacher, but I do want to talk about schools in general. And I give an example, which this is not. There's been busing changes in Auburn, Washburn. That's not what we're going to talk about. But as part of those, one of the things that people came to me, because that's in part of my district, was concerns about maybe more kids walking to school, and could we do something about better sidewalks out in the areas they're walking. And I think what that got me thinking about, and something I think about in general, is we have school boards who obviously oversee the school districts. It's not a city function to oversee the school districts.
Right.
But I do then always wonder, what is my role as a city council person in helping the schools in general in this community? Is it focusing on just making the kids' lives better so the schools can, so that helps the school district? Or do I have a bigger role I should be playing with schools in general as a city council person? And I don't know the answer to that, but I have been thinking about that a lot more as the sidewalk issue has come up in my district.
Yeah, so I really believe that there's opportunity to have good conversations with administrators, with teachers. Because I can honestly say, Auburn, Washburn, where I'm at, we have fantastic administrators, but they don't always see the things that teachers see. And they don't always have time to kind of get that perspective. I think our administrators do the best that they can. They're very supportive, but being in the classroom is way different from, being on the school board or being an administrator. Because, typically, I know in my school, especially at the end of the school year, they're putting out fires because kids are going crazy because school's about to be out. But what's going on in the classroom, and how are your teachers doing? And so I think teachers have a certain perspective that would be beneficial for someone like yourself who wants to know, what can I do to be supportive to school districts? So when you're talking about school districts, you're talking about administrators, you're talking about teachers, you're talking about students, you're talking about parents, you're talking about support staff. Our custodians, our custodians do a fantastic job. And, with that construction project, that's still going on.
Right.
The last day of school for me was quite interesting this year because they're getting ready to remodel the whole hallway down there where I'm at, and that was the hardest working last day of school I've ever had in my life because I had to box up everything and move
it all had
stuff.
to be put away.
Oh yeah, I earned my pay for the whole year in one day on that last day.
That's awesome.
So but I do think that. I think just knowing that our city council cares about what's happening in our school districts and that it's not just being put on the school board, that, there's a bigger picture because the schools are part of the bigger picture.
Yeah. Well, I think a key point in there too is it's kind of like I sit on the city council, but I can't tell you what it's like to go fix a water line in 10-degree weather, right? Exactly. So the only way I'm going to learn that is if I go talk to the people repairing the water lines. And the same as that. I can talk to the superintendent all I want, and great, he's great. But you're right. If I'm not talking to the teachers about, okay, what's it actually like? Because as good as the superintendent may be, you're right. They're not in the classroom every day doing the work, dealing with the kids on a day-to-day basis. Yep. So yeah, no, that's great. All right, so let's talk about you a little bit. So you said you're from Oklahoma. I ask everybody, what is your connection to Topeka? How did you get here? And you said you're staying, so that's a good sign. But so what's your Topeka journey?
My journey to Topeka came through, obviously Oklahoma. We moved to Iowa, where I went to college, got my first degree. My husband got his doctorate degree there, so his first teaching job was at Emporia State University. Then I went and got a master's degree, and then I don't know. I got this job working with Kansas kids at Gear Up. And it made me want to become a teacher. So I already had 2 degrees, and then I told my husband I was going back to school again. And that was, he just kind of, his eyes glazed. Yeah, his eyes glazed over like, why? I was like, because I want to be a teacher now. So, and then what happened was my daughter got a job after she graduated from grad school at Emporia State. She got a job here at Security Benefit, and my son had just moved to Tulsa to take a police officer position. And then she had the nerve to leave, and both of them took my grandkids with them. And I was like,
Yeah.
I think I want to move to Topeka because I just wanted to. I am a very, very strong family person, but I'm a people person. And the thought of being we have no ties to Emporia. We have no family there. I
Right.
had a few friends, and just the thought of being there without having those connections, it was depressing to me. So I followed my daughter here, and
Hey, no. You followed the grandkids.
I did.
Daughter's
yeah.
nice, but you followed
Yeah.
the grand. That's how that really works.
Those are
right?
facts.
I mean,
Yes.
I would say to people, my parents loved me. They loved their granddaughter. There's like a
Yeah.
whole nother level of.
I
I'm like,
remember-
wait, you didn't take me to Disney. You took her. What just happened there?
I remember when I first was gonna have my first grandchild, and somebody was telling me like, "Oh, you're gonna love being a grandparent. It is the most wonderful thing." And I just looked at them like, "I've raised kids. I know what parenting is like. What? Why are you making a big deal?" But when that baby came, oh, it changed my whole world. I would follow those kids anywhere. So
All right, I'm gonna tell the world I already failed my hosting duties. Do you want some water?
no, I'm
Okay,
fine.
just making sure. Usually I put water. I totally forgot. So everyone knows
okay.
I forgot the water. If you want some, just holler. We'll
Okay,
get you some.
I'm fine.
So I've told people before, I substitute taught while I was going through grad school for 3 years. Back in 501, and I had the advantage, I still had a lot of teachers who taught me, and so they could request me, which is kind of surreal when you go back and suddenly you're like, oh, and they're always, I still can't call them by their first name. It doesn't matter, right? Like that's just, I think, in a lot of us. But I learned that I don't have the skill set, especially certain ages. I mean, I could do middle school, high school a little different, and I was an adjunct professor at Washburn for a while. That's totally different because college. But it wasn't a natural gift for me to be in a classroom and do it that way. I'm curious, was that natural for you as you wanted to be a teacher or became a teacher? Or did you have to sort of, because I really do think it's just a whole different way of going about things, or some of it's built
It is.
in.
Okay, so two things to answer your question. I feel like I really technically have been a teacher my whole life. So, I'm the oldest and I have two little brothers, and I have a bunch of cousins. And back then we used to like to play school, and I was always the teacher, and I always knew most. And then, I would always help my brothers in school and everything. But it never really dawned on me to become a teacher. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I'm lucky my brothers don't live in the state of Kansas because they're not going to hear this. But I remember one time at Thanksgiving at my grandma's house, one of my cousins who was a toddler, I was going to play with them with some crayons. And I was like, I asked the question, is she left-handed or right-handed? Not knowing that it's too early to tell.
Yeah.
And so my aunt said, well, we don't know yet. And so I threw the crayons down on the floor, and I said, okay, pick one up. And so she saw what I did, and she said, wow, Cathy, you should be a teacher. That was really incredible how you did that. And I just looked at her, I was like, I don't want to be a teacher stuck in the classroom all day with kids like my brothers. No, thank you. But later, I worked with kids in youth volunteering. I worked with Girl Scouts. I've been in youth group, volunteer. I love working with young people. But I will say also the second part of your question, I think every teacher will say they have that niche. I've taught at every level, elementary, middle school, high school, and college. I love middle school.
Yeah.
Because
that's funny, because I remember when I was a sub there, I think they call it the hard hat area, because they're at that transition age.
They are, but the thing is, like, I tried middle school. That was definitely not for me at all. Like one time I substituted in a third grade classroom, and those kids were terrible. They were terrible, and I had sent this kid to the office, and he never came back. So I got a little concerned. And so I was like, I think I need to go make sure this kid is okay. As I was leaving the classroom, my foot got caught on one of those, those little milk crate things.
Yeah.
My foot got caught on the milk crate thing. I face planted so hard on the tile floor. Pain rippled through my body. I was just laying on the floor. I couldn't even move. And all of a sudden, I heard these third graders say, I think she's dead. And then I started laughing, and that hurt. And so finally, when I got up, a teacher saw me. They came and checked on me. I had to go fill out a incident report and all that. And when I came back to the third grade classroom, they were like, "We're sorry. We'll be good. We really like you. Please come back and be our sub again." I was like, "No way."
No.
So yeah, elementary is not for me, but I love the phase that adolescents are in when they're discovering who they
Yeah.
are, trying to figure things out. They do ridiculous things. Middle school is the craziest because their brains
Yeah.
are just
Oh,
like
yeah.
jello.
I coach like my son's entering middle school, and I've coached his soccer and baseball, and yeah, at that age, it's just everywhere.
It is.
and half the time you're like, I don't think they're paying attention, and they are more than you think, and then
Mhm.
you're like, oh wait, they were listening.
Yeah.
They weren't looking at me or doing it, but they were.
I don't know
listening.
how they do that because
I
I
know.
always think, "Did you even hear what I said?" And then they'll repeat what I said, and I was like,
Okay.
"That's weird." And then they come up with their weirdest sayings. So every generation has its lingo and stuff.
Yeah.
But this stuff they were saying today,
I can't even.
it makes my head hurt.
Yeah.
Like one day I went in the classroom and this girl goes, "Mrs. Terrell, your hair is herring." I said, "My hair is doing what?"
Airing.
"Your hair is herring." I'm like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah.
Like, "It looks good." I said, "Well, why can't you just say
Say
my
it
hair
looks
looks
good.
good? So it became a whole thing that hour. But yeah, so I just kind of went with it,
So right now you teach Spanish.
I do.
How does
I
that
teach.
happen?
I
I
teach
mean, how do you get to be the
Spanish,
Spanish
German,
teacher?
and French. Okay, how did I get into Spanish?
Do you know those languages?
I
mean,
know.
you're teaching them, so you obviously
I
have
know.
some
I will say
comprehension.
this. I know French and Spanish. French was my second language. Spanish came as a result to moving to Kansas. I'll tell you that in a minute. German, I learned it with the kids when I was
Google
teaching
Translate.
it. I was just like, "Oh, don't use Google Translate.
Yeah, I know. I've heard it's not
Don't do that.
accurate,
It's
especially
not.
with like
It'll get you in trouble."
inflections or
Yeah.
regions or those kind
Yeah,
of things.
yeah, you gotta be careful with Google. Don't if you're listening out there, please don't use Google Translate.
There's your citizens advisory warning.
Yes.
Don't use Google Translate.
Wordreference.com if you need a dictionary. And you can't look up sentences in the dictionary. So you kind of got to know how to put stuff together. But let me tell you about how did I
Yeah.
get to Spanish? So when we moved to Emporia, all of my kids' friends spoke Spanish. They were
Really?
Hispanic. Yeah.
Interesting.
There's a huge
There
population
is.
there.
Yeah.
And so
I lived there for a little bit.
they would come home. My daughter, especially, she picked it up really fast. And then when she got to high school, her and her friends would be in my house, and then I didn't understand a word, and they were giggling, and I was just like, I don't know about this. So, I mean, I feel like I should know what's going on. And so I was like, okay. I went and enrolled in Spanish at Emporia State University. And because I was already fluent in French, it came really fast. They're both Latin-based languages,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so they're very similar. And I never told my daughter that I was taking Spanish.
Yeah.
And so about a year in, I was pretty much close to fluent, and I could understand it better than I could speak it.
Yeah, because if you don't speak it a lot,
yeah.
they say it's harder to.
Her and her friend were in there making plans. Can you believe this? Sophomores in high school making plans to go to the park and meet some boys. And I was like, whoa, hold up, wait a minute. So I go in the living room and I said, "Excuse me, you did not ask me if you could go anywhere, and you're not going. Sarah, go home." And they both looked at me like with deer in the headlights. "You understood that?" And I said, "Yes, I did." They're like, "How?" I said, "I'm sorry. Did I neglect to tell you? I've been taking Spanish class for a year. Because you are my child, I need to know what's
Yeah,
going
you
on
know,
in your life. So if
yeah.
this is a secret code language, I'm busting in." So, and then later, me and my daughter, once I became fluent, it became our secret language. When I didn't want my husband to know what I was
Do what
saying
you-
about me,
you just
so
use it. You lose the.
I don't do that much, yeah. So,
Man,
but
if I
yeah,
thought of that, maybe I would have paid more attention to a language when I was in high school. If I thought of it as, ooh, how can I get around my parents not knowing?
it is so much fun. In fact, I'm going to take a group of students to Costa Rica and
Oh,
Panama.
that'd
We
be
leave on
great.
Saturday.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I want them to be able to experience the world outside of the borders
Yeah.
of the U.S.
I think
and
that's important.
put some practical use to what
Well,
we
that's the other thing. They
learned.
can actually use the language in a
Yeah,
totally
so
different environment.
It'd be a good experience.
Oh, that's great. Well, so the other thing you do, right, is you sell some jams and jellies. So first of all, as we get started, tell people where they can find your jams and jellies before we talk about them and how you got into that.
Okay, currently you can find my jams and jellies if you just want to purchase a jar of jams and jellies. You can go to Topeka Vendors Market. You can go to Rosewood Event Center, event venue, I think was what it's called, at 3216 Southwest 29th. That's where my office is located. And you can also go online to www.mamatjams.com. I do deliver, but if you live here in town, you just put pickup on your order, and your version of pickup is I bring it to you and you pick it up out of my hand when I give it to you. So, yeah.
So do you go? I know were you at the farmers market this past weekend?
I
Are you
was.
going to do that regularly for a while? And see
Oh,
how it
yeah.
goes? Okay.
I love the farmer's
People
market.
need to know because a lot of people go to that farmers market.
I was
so-
last year. I was at the one at the mall, the
Oh,
bread
yeah,
basket, and
bread
this year
basket.
my friends talked me into coming down to the one downtown,
Yeah.
and I really like it. It's got a lot more traffic, but all my friends are there, and I see so
Yeah.
many people that I know, and I really enjoy it.
So they can come down there on Saturdays too.
Yep.
And get you in the morning.
Oh yeah, there you go. Come to farmers market downtown on
Yeah.
Saturday. On
See,
Friday
I'm here to
nights.
help. I'm here to let
Yeah.
them know where to get you.
On Friday nights, I'm at the United Methodist Church over by Washburn
yeah.
University. They have a little.
Oh, that's
They
right.
started one up just to kind of deal with kind of the fact that people who live in that area are in a food desert.
Yep.
And so the pastor there, who's a really good friend of mine, Earl Williams, started this farmers market on Friday nights. And so my friends and I, we all graduated from Omni Emerge Business Academy. So
They've been doing a lot of good work over
they
there.
have done fantastic.
It's-
They are the reason why I have
It's
elevated.
amazing what they're doing. I need to get Michael in here
Michael is
to have a conversation.
He's just a visionary. He really is. And so his vision for the city, you know, it's not just about us as individual entrepreneurs, but he recognizes, you know, how it's an ecosystem and that what we do as entrepreneurs helps the city, and when the city helps entrepreneurs, and everybody wins.
Yeah. So he gave you that helped you get the piece to start it. Why did you want to do it in the first place? What got you to even wanting to do it, knowing how to do it, to get into the
Oh
point
my
where
gosh,
you could do it?
this is the weirdest thing. It's not like I dreamed my whole life to grow up and make some jams and jellies. No, but
It's
when
my
I-
dream to eat them.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but I can't make them.
That's where the love of it started with my grandma. She used to make jams and jellies when I was a little girl, and they were so good. And then, you know, when I was a kid, I used to have to go spend the summers with her. And I'll never forget this one time in the summertime. I was probably in the 6th grade, and she was like, "Cathy, get up. We're going to go get some grapes." And I was like, "Why?" And she said, "I'm going to make some jelly today." I was like, "Okay." And so I thought we were going to the grocery store.
To like buy
Yeah, I was like,
something for jelly.
we pulled up on this dirt road next to like a lake with some bushes, and I'm like, what are we doing here? I thought we were going to the store to buy some grapes. She said, "No, child." That's how my grandma used to talk. "No, child. I don't pay money for nothing. God gave me for free. We gonna pick these grapes over here in these bushes." And I was like, "We are?" And we did. It was not fun. I'm not a country girl. There were bugs out there, and I thought I saw a snake, and I mean, it was crazy. But we took those grapes home, and man, when I watched her, it was like, wow, that's kind of cool. I didn't know that's where jelly comes from.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when you're a kid, you get stuff
You
from
have
the
no
store.
idea.
You
just go to
don't
the
know where it comes
store,
from.
Or your parents just give it to you. You're like, great.
So that's kind of
And you eat
how.
half of it, and they're like, "No, you know how long it took someone to make that? What? It was good." You should.
Yeah, that's kind of how the love of it started. And then my grandmother passed away in 2019 at the age of 104. And in 2020, when COVID hit, you know, and everything was on shut
Yep.
down, you know, what do? You just sit up and just think. And I was thinking about, you know, I just remember one day I was thinking, man, I wish I could have some of my grandma's apple butter. Her apple butter was so good. And I was like, I wonder if I could make some. And so I just went in the kitchen and kind of started playing around with it. My first batch went in the trash. And so I was like, that is not how grandma did it. And so I just started thinking about like what I saw her doing in the kitchen. I was like, oh, I know what I forgot. Cloves. Because I remember when I asked her one day, what's a clove?
Yeah.
She said, I don't know, but we're going to put it
We're
in
gonna put
here.
it-
And so I started making apple butter, and then I started sharing it with like my family members. And last summer, when I went to family reunion, some of my family members had tasted it, loved it, said it was the best thing they'd ever had. And so I was giving some away as prizes for games. They started fighting, like arguing over who was going to get the apple butter. I mean, they were serious,
Yeah.
and my mother is still kind of bitter right now because she didn't get
She
it.
didn't get it?
And
Didn't make mom any of her own
yeah,
special.
and one of my cousins just yelled out, "Cathy, you should be selling this." And I was like, "Really?" They were like, "Yeah, I'd buy it." So I came back and started doing some research, and I was like, I started with apple butter, and then I started experimenting. I was like, man, I used to like caramel apples when I was a kid.
I was going to ask you how you decide what flavors you've made or to make.
So some of my flavors are just based on memories of
Remember.
things that grandma made. So that's where my peach cobbler jam comes from. That's one of my top sellers. I make a carrot cake jam and pecan pie jam. I've made that before. I mean, I just think I started thinking about like all the stuff my grandma used to make for desserts that I liked, and then from there, I just started coming up with my own stuff.
I'm
Like,
sure it's a little try. Yeah, you got to try it.
oh yeah,
till
I
you
do.
Get it just right.
I
or-
try some stuff. If it's not sweet enough, I'm like, I don't really like that. And so everything that I sell, I taste. If I don't like it, I'm not giving it to somebody else. And so,
So is there ever a flavor you tried that will never hit the market? Because either you couldn't get it right, you're like, oh, that did not come out the way I thought it was
Yep.
going to at all.
there has been one of those, but most of them sometimes like there's a couple of restaurants in town that use my stuff on their menu.
Yeah.
And so like the wheelbarrow uses my jalapeno
Oh,
on
for
their
they do
jalapeno
that
popper
burger, yeah.
sandwich. And the tea box uses a couple of my flavors. I just made something new for them. They use elderberry
Yeah.
as a dipping sauce for their donut holes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But I was making it like thick, like jam like. And so the kitchen manager's like, is it even possible if you can turn this into a syrup? And I was like, yeah, I can. And so I just finished it this morning. It was good. It's
Interesting.
called Midnight Berry Dip. It's made out of elderberries. And-
Elderberry's pretty good. I mean, I see you use like the sweet one. They have different kinds of elderberry.
And I just did a blackberry. I had never even eaten a blackberry before.
Really?
Yeah.
I love blackberries. There's lots of
So,
seeds in them, but I love
I did a blackberry for the wheelbarrow and their Monte Cristo sandwich, and they haven't even tried it yet, but I'm taking it over there when I leave here today. But I think they're gonna like it.
Make me hungry.
I'm sorry. Me too. I'm hungry too. I
My-
should have ate something
My
besides
only
jam.
experience with trying to make, I'm guessing it was a jelly. I don't know what's a jam versus a jelly. I'll ask you that here in a second. But when we first moved into our house, there was a grapevine out along the fence.
Mhm.
And so they weren't edible grapes. I mean, they were just tart and you just couldn't eat them. But we were like, I bet you could make these into like a jelly. So one time we picked enough, we did it. I boiled them. I did the whole cheesecloth thing. I let it go through. It came out pretty well. I also said, this is why I go to the grocery store or buy it from people like you, because that was a lot of work to get my 6 little jars or 8 little jars of
Yeah,
grape jelly.
there
from
are
the
some
grapevine.
flavors that are labor intensive, and grape is one of those.
Yeah.
Because you have to, like you said, you got to boil it and then you got to
Yeah.
strain it through
'Cause
that
the seeds
cheesecloth.
and the
Yeah,
cloth- yeah.
it's a lot of work.
So it was good, but I was like,
Yeah.
this is why I wouldn't survive. In
I
an
do. I make
apocalypse.
I
don't
make
have
a
the
really
patience.
good grape jelly, but I don't enjoy making grape jelly.
Yeah.
It's a
well,
lot of
and
work.
grapes, I guess if you need it as a base for something, that's one thing. But you
Yeah.
can get grape jelly.
I like to get creative.
Right. I
Yeah.
can buy grape jelly. Everyone's
Exactly.
jelly. Yeah. What is the difference between a jam and a jelly?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that.
I really
So,
don't know, except one's thicker and one's jellier. There's
Yeah,
my
so-
science. My jelly science.
Jelly is made from the juice of a fruit. And so that's why it's it has more translucency to it. A jam is made from mashed or chopped up pieces of fruit. So it actually has pieces of the fruit in it. And that's
Okay.
why it's a little thicker.
That makes
And so
total
jam will
sense.
usually, it can be chunky. I try not to make mine too chunky, but you can still tell that you can feel the texture of the fruit that's in a jam, and jelly is just juice.
That's great. So you do it all yourself?
I do. I juice fruit. I have a fruit juicer.
You gotta train somebody. You gonna get an apprentice one of these days to
I-
pass it on. And
You know
get
what?
Some help and,
So I have really big dreams for my business. I'm gonna become a millionaire. You guys
Yeah.
just watch and see. And so I actually, this is what I just decided yesterday. They have these things called co-packers, and those are companies that will take your recipes
oh, yeah.
and then they make it, they package it, they put the labeling on and everything. They do all the work, And for example, I'm looking at this co-packer right now in Kansas City. They might charge me $2 per jar,
Sure.
which gives me a really good
Yeah.
price set to be able to do my wholesale to retail and restaurants, but also to market up for retail.
Yeah.
And so the good thing about having a co-packer is this. I don't have to pay anybody.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
I don't have to do,
Yep.
payroll.
Yep.
I don't have to pay payroll taxes and
So they didn't show up to work.
oh yeah.
We're
So,
behind on our production.
100%. When
Yep.
when I get ready to go, all out, co-packing it is because it just makes sense to me. Right now I'm doing it all by myself, and I really want I want the flexibility. This is the other thing a co-packer will do for me. If I need to go on vacation, I can go on vacation whenever I want to.
Yeah.
I don't want people keep asking me about brick and mortar. I don't want a brick and mortar. I live to the
yeah.
tune of bells ringing every day.
Yep.
9 months out of the year, I don't go to the bathroom unless the bell has rung. And so, I want to enjoy my golden years and have the freedom to do what I want when I want. And I always said I wanted to teach until I'm not enjoying it as much as I want to. And it's not that I'm not enjoying it as much as I want to.
Right. You've been doing it a while now, right?
But I have.
Yeah,
But I find more joy in this. And that's why my slogan is joy in every jar. It's a joy of memories that it creates of me and my grandmother. But it's the joy of producing something that makes people happy and feel good. Because food it sells itself.
it does. I think one of the things you're on a good path, which is the hardest thing for any entrepreneur who's selling a product, right? Is to one, you can have the best product in the world. That's half of it. Because if it's good, people will keep talking, they'll keep buying, they're going to want to eat. But you also have to let people know you exist. You have to have a megaphone big enough at some point to say, I'm here, just try it and you're going to love it. But it's finding that way. And it sounds like you've done that in some smart ways, especially with working with some restaurants and going to places where there's people, who will be interested in it.
And I like to do like out of the box stuff. So I'm going to put this out there for people so they might get excited about it. So when I come back from Central America on this trip I'm going to take, I'm going to reach out to some different coffee shops and bakeries and restaurants. And I want to have these little baskets all over town called the Jars of Joy Drop. And so when they purchase, a latte, I'll let the restaurants and coffee shops choose what it is. Then they get to pick a little gift
like
size sample. And it'll have a little tag on it.
Don't
that
give away your
says,
secrets, but that's a really good idea.
I'm gonna do that. Nobody
That's a really good idea.
I really hope that I think the restaurants and coffee shops will jump on board with that.
I think some of them definitely
It'll get traffic in there
because it's an add-on they can do.
It's kind of like a treasure hunt,
right? And it's enhances what they're doing with little work on their part. It helps support, especially some of these local coffee shops because they want to support. There's always good tie-ins because I think that's what I found, especially in Topeka, but with the small business community, that there is a lot of support. They lean on each other and build those relationships so they can find crossovers because it helps each other.
100%. Like all of the retail stuff that I'm doing right now with restaurants, I gotta give a shout out to Jake King at the Tea Box.
Yeah.
He found out that I was doing jams and jellies, and he'd been ordering his stuff from Wichita, I think, and the shipping was just astronomical. And when he found out that through Omni that there was somebody in town doing it, he contacted me and reached out to me. I took him some samples, and we just struck a deal with each other. He has told so many other restaurant owners about me. I have a list of 10 that I'm
That's great.
going to be working with.
Because local saves them money too.
Exactly.
It does. And again, it's something they can tell people too. This is local.
Yeah.
It didn't come from some
Exactly.
random,
So it's been fun. And like you said, the entrepreneurial community here, even those that are in the cohorts from Omni, we are tight. Like we are proud that we graduated from that program.
Yeah, well, you should be. Because like I said, it's doing a lot of great work and it's getting some recognition regionally and even a little national recognition recently. So,
That's
all right,
awesome.
remind people where they can find you online.
www.mamatjams.com.
There you go. Go buy some or go to the farmer's market or all those other places she said earlier. All right. So, do you have any questions for me? I ask everyone to bring a question or two for me without telling me what it is. Be like, Spencer.
Okay, so let's talk about the riverfront development.
Yeah.
If the money comes in and it becomes a reality, what kind of things? Okay, so I'm in entrepreneurial small business
Yeah.
mode. What kind of vision do you think the city should have to make sure that small businesses have a place to thrive and really become a part of that whole community and not let some of the bigger conglomerates come in
'Cause
and
that
take it
happens a
over?
little too much, and then they leave and kind of collapse. So I think two things. I do think when people in this community hear about riverfront development, sometimes they laugh a little. And I always remind them, actually, that river is a heck of a resource. And most cities, especially some capital cities that have rivers, have turned them into some sort of riverfront development because it's not just great for the people who live here as a neat space to go to, kind of like you mentioned earlier. But it's also an attraction for people when they come here to want to be like, oh, we stayed near the riverfront, or we were able to shop at the riverfront. So that's why I say I think it's a great idea. It's the devil's in the details. But to your point, I think so hopefully the riverfront development people are listening, and if not, I'll have these conversations with them as we go through. Is I think to your point, that's how you make it truly unique, right? It's easy to bring in some restaurant that's a national chain or a bunch of places we know that may also be in 5 other cities that you can get to within an hour from here, or even though, there's 2 more of those restaurants on the other side of Topeka, right?
Yeah.
But it makes it truly unique if you can say, yeah, there's some kind of national anchor or something, but the majority of things down there you can only get in Topeka, Kansas. So it's
Yes.
not just our own unique riverfront, it's our own unique shopping environment, which gives it that extra, which gets people in Topeka to always want to go down there for what's different and what's community based. And then adds that extra when people come to town, you can tell them, yeah, you got a couple places to go. You want art, you go down to Noto. You want truly the artisan craft business stuff, you can go over to the riverfront development. And I think that not only helps the business community, but I think it helps them thrive a little more in keeping those folks in there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because if it becomes too corporate,
Yeah.
it's like, well, this
It's
was
like
cool,
the same
but
old,
it's
same
corporate.
old.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What makes this experience different? We just ate at Applebee's yesterday. Why am I
right.
going to get excited about eating?
Because now you can look at the river while you eat it out. Right?
Yeah. So yeah, I
I'm
like
like,
that.
that's nice,
that
but,
concept of
Yeah.
if you want this, you can only get it in
Only in Topeka. Yeah.
Topeka,
And I
Kansas.
don't think we lean into that so much. It's kind of like, and I don't have anyone in particular, but we have so much retail space in this community. And there's so many people holding on to it with the dream of attracting that big national retailer. Oh, because they're going to sign the big lease and they're going to have the money. Well, first of all, if you look around, they don't stick around these days any more than the locals. And I've always thought, if you would be more reasonable and divvy some of those spaces up or charge a rate that a local person could afford in their first couple years of business, you would succeed, they would succeed, it would benefit the city of Topeka. So I get what your vision is long term. In the meantime, that property has sat empty for 5 years, it's fallen apart, it's losing value. Why would you not want to fill it with somebody local at a very low rental rate for them, but helps benefit you? And it's a logic I don't understand. And some of them try to explain it to me, and I'm like, no, you're wrong.
There's
I'm
a
right.
saying that my daddy used to say all the time when I was a kid. Usually it was around playing the dominoes at the domino table. But he would always, I never forget this. All money isn't good money. And so money that isn't regenerating itself is not good money. And so holding out on a resource because you might be able to get more money, but you're not, and now your resource isn't as valuable anymore. That's just not smart business. I think we could do so much better as a business community working together, and in the end, it'll all work out. We all benefit.
Yeah, and I just think part of that is people own a lot of commercial property around here who don't live around here, and so they're not as invested in that concept of building the community. They are looking at the big. And other times, I get it's tough to find those local businesses, but to your point, they're out there.
Right.
And while you don't want to do brick and mortar for reasons that make total sense, there are others who are desperate and they just can't find that right spot that they can afford and actually stay in business. I mean, years ago in Lawrence, I owned a wine shop. It was inside the World Market store there. And the only reason that closed, it was successful. But after 4 years, my landlord was like, well, we need to make more money. And it's easier to charge you a bunch of rent. And I'm like, I'm a small local. I'm not if you want to bankrupt me, good for you.
Yeah.
And so I think until the day I backed my truck up and took all my stuff out, they were like, of course he'll sign the lease. I was like, I'm not going bankrupt for you folks. And,
Exactly.
and now that space sat empty for years after that. And then they converted it to storage. And I'm like, what a loss for them, for that little area of Lawrence, but okay. You know, it's just short-sighted.
Sometimes you can be a little bit, more creative about how to generate that additional revenue that you need without costing you and the people that, that are bringing you the revenue that you do have.
Yeah.
And so you just got to think outside the box sometimes and come up with a solution where everybody wins. Because if the building is sitting there and nobody's in it and it's losing value, everybody's losing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not you, because you moved on and went to something else. So, so now as a business owner, that landlord, it's a loss. So he took a hit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it's too bad. Anything else you want to ask me? Throw at me? You don't have to.
What's your favorite flavor of jam?
In general, I'm so boring. So I'll tell you, I love strawberry. Like anything if even a variation of strawberry. Although my wife will tell you I'll eat any dang jam if you stay. With an exception, I don't mind like jalapenos and stuff. If I put them on stuff, I don't like them in my jam or jelly. And a lot of people do. More power to them. But there's all this jalapeno flavored jams and jellies and variations. I'm always like, I'm good. I don't need jalapenos in my jam and jelly. But I know that's a big thing. And hopefully you sell a bunch of that. But it's just, I don't know why. It's never been my thing. That's the one flavor I'm like, no.
Well, I am going to be developing that whole spirit line. And I had a lady call me today, just this morning before I came down here. One of my cousins in Texas told her about my business. She got online and looked at my website. And so, people always want to tell you what you should do with your business. I don't know. People who don't own businesses don't realize. It's probably kind of like being a politician. Right. Everybody has an idea about how you should do your job. And so I
want a river run. And that's okay. That's the process.
I got. So she was calling me to tell me, she had an idea of something I could do. And of course, my eyes started rolling up in my head, like, here we go again. But I was nice and I listened. And
some ideas are good.
It was a good idea because I told her, she asked me, did I make a pina colada jam? And I was like, no. But it's interesting you asked me that because somebody just asked me if I made a Hennessy jelly. And I said I could. And then I started doing, looking at some recipes. And I was like, I could do that. And then I found I'm going to make a cake with some pina colada jam. Yeah, so one of the things I love to do, Spencer, is teach people that jams and jellies aren't just for bread and toast and pancakes.
Baked into stuff.
They're ingredients. So I have this garlic onion jam that I use in soups and my collard greens when I make collard greens. I have made...
You're right, because I think people equate some of that to like it's a sweet dessert thing or a breakfast as opposed to no, it's actually
an ingredient. So
That's
I'm working on a cookbook. I want to come up with a Mama T jamming in the kitchen with Mama T cookbook that has what you can do, recipes with all of my different flavors. Like I have a strawberry heat wave. That's strawberry jalapeno. I know you don't like that,
it's not my
but I'm
favorite.
working on.
But I might eat it if it's in something.
A cocktail mix to make a spicy strawberry margarita. And so I have a friend in Emporia that owns a Mexican restaurant, and so he's going to try it out at his bar, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's kind of like growing up. My mom would be like, eat some apple butter. Ooh, who wants to eat apple? You're like, you have this perception of apple butter. That's not. And then you get older and I eat it. I'm like, this stuff is great. I got to eat some more apple butter. Why haven't I been eating this whole time? Right?
Yep. Well, Mama T always says it just takes one taste, and you'll
but you're right. It is an ingredient. You're right. That does probably get lost a lot by people.
Yep.
Yeah. So normally, what we would do next is we'd read off some emails. But I forgot and I forgot your water. I forgot the emails. I left them in the printer. And usually I'd have you read them off. But we'll talk about one email I've gotten a lot. As we sit here today, it's raining outside. Mm-hmm. It's torrential rain outside. There's a little bit of flash flooding going on. And whenever this happens, I already been flooded today with emails. I get all the emails from people who say, my inlet is flooding. The water's going to rise. My ravine, it's clogged, I think. It's not going. And if they're truly clogged, so I've got a lot of those emails. Like, what are you going to do about it? You got to get out here and clean it. Well, obviously, we're not cleaning it today, right? We can't get out there right now. It's too late. But I tell people two things about that. First is if it's truly clogged and flooding, let me know. We'll get on a list. We'll get out there and clean it if it's a city. But I also think sometimes what happens is when these downpours, I always ask, is it to your house? Well, no, but it's filling up the ravine. And I'm like, that's what it's supposed to do, right? It's supposed to go into the drainage ditch. That's why it's called a drainage ditch, right? Or the outlet pond. And I think people see those close to their house and they get worried, and they should, because we've had rains where they've come close. And so I always I'm like, I'm not trying to be callous, but if it's not to your house yet, then it's doing its job, right? Now, if it gets to your house, we have a problem. And so I've been answering a lot of those emails this week about if it's truly clogged, let's talk. But if it's not flooding your house, don't worry about it. Calm down. So I try not to sound like the mean guy.
Right.
Yeah, we also have an area, we have parts of town where it gets confusing, especially in my district, which it's county, some of it's county, some of it's city, and some of it's township. And so what'll happen is you'll literally have them. In fact, we have one area where it's county, city, township, city, county. It's and there's one drainage area that it's like in all of those three. It takes like a committee to just figure out how do we go clean it. It works, but sometimes it's one of them doesn't mow or clean it, and then I get the calls, and I'm the jerk who's like, it's not mine, it's the counties or the townships. Like, we'll do it anyway, and I'm like, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
But, I'm sorry. So we try. But so that was my big email this week, was all about the rain. So if people do have an issue, I tell them, give me a call. I don't want your house flooding. I don't want your neighborhood flooding. Same goes for we get gutters and stuff that get blocked up, or people this time of year, people mow their lawns and they'll throw a lot of grass in the gutters and then it backs up. And we're like, we'll come talk to them. We won't cite them yet, but we'll at least, someone can knock on their door and say, stop doing that. You're screwing up your whole neighborhood's drainage system.
Yeah.
Cut it out. So
bag your grass.
Yeah, bag your grass, or at least keep it out of the gutters. Sometimes people dump it too in these areas. And you're like, what are you doing? It's just grass. What do you want us to do with it?
Would you dump that in the sink? Because it's almost the same thing.
I know,
You're
right?
clogging up
Yeah,
the
but
drain.
they don't dump it on their own land. They go
Right.
dump it in other people or in public places, and then hope nobody has a camera. Although this day and age, there's cameras everywhere.
I know.
People are watching. You got to assume any of these days they're watching.
I don't worry about the flooding too much because of where I live.
Yeah.
We're on one of the highest points in Topeka, so
Yeah.
if my house floods, y'all dead.
I grew up next to, in the Crestview area, next to like the Shunga Creek, and so there'd be when we had really heavy rains, it would be we were towards the end of the street, and I remember once or twice as a kid where it actually came up and out into the street, which we thought was cool. We couldn't figure out why all the adults were like, oh my gosh, it needs to stop. We're like, this is great, and now of course all the parents are like, no, this is terrible. Hopefully it doesn't hit the houses. But when you're a kid, you think it's awesome.
My only issue with the rain, this happened last week. Fortunately, I was not home because my family knows me well enough to know that this would have been a really bad thing. But so I don't know who to blame. My husband, my son-in-law, my grandson, somebody didn't cut the grass on time. And so it started raining. And then so we had to wait, and then the grass grew a lot. And so after my grandson came over and cut the yard, somebody left the garage door up. And then my son-in-law caught a 3-foot long snake in my garage.
Ooh, 3 feet. That's a pretty good
That's
size.
a big snake. And
is
I
a
wasn't
big
there. I
snake.
have a really bad snake phobia. So my grandson said, I'm so glad I wasn't here. He said, Gigi, that's what my grandkids call me, DJ, we would have had to take you to the hospital because you would have passed out, hit your head on the concrete. I said, yeah. And yeah, when you take me to the hospital, tell them to give me something where I don't wake up and take away my memory because I wouldn't have came back to this house ever. I am so terrified.
I would
of
say
snakes.
I don't think I have a fear of snakes, but that may be a lie because I don't like them at all. Like we saw one, it was just a little garter snake, but I didn't want to go near it. Like I didn't freak out, but I was also like, heck no, I want nothing to do with that thing.
Yeah.
I'm backing away.
Right.
My wife's like, it's harmless. I'm like, doesn't matter. It doesn't look harmless to me.
Doesn't
It's looking
matter.
at me with its little
If you're scared of
eyes
snakes, and people will say this, oh, it's just a little one. Size, this is one time. Size does not matter at all. A snake is a snake is a snake when it comes to Mama T. If you bring that thing towards me, one of us is not going to make it out alive, and it is not going to be me. You will see some kind of crazy, deranged, psycho woman coming at you if you have a snake. It's like something in my brain just snaps. It's a fear. It is a legitimate. That I will say that is probably my worst psychological problem. Other than that, I'm pretty chill and cool.
But
I mean,
snakes get you, huh?
oh yeah, I can't even look at them on TV. I can't even look at a picture of one.
Really?
It creeps me out so bad.
Wow.
I think it has something to do with my childhood.
You never saw snakes on a plane?
Oh, I'm not watching that. No, no. I'd have nightmares for my husband would be tortured because, yeah, a while back, probably about 15 years ago, he woke up one morning and he had a black eye, and I was like, "What happened to you?" You hit me in your sleep. I was like, "Oh, was I fighting?" He said, "Apparently." I was like, "Oh, sorry. I wasn't fighting you, if that helps."
I will say through the years at our house, we've had some critters who fall into the window wells because they're not covered.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while, we've had frogs and rabbits and squirrel. I've learned some tricks through the years with things like squirrels, which someone taught me. Like, you don't have to actually try to get it out. If you just put a board, things like squirrels can crawl out of there. Frogs, not so much. And I will say, full disclosure, because I'm all about transparency here at the Civic Circus, but sometimes tell my wife, "Why don't you go in there and get it, and I'll hold the bag, or I'll stand back here." And she's fearless. She's like, "Okay, I got this."
Hey, I caught a little gecko thingy in my house the other day. It was like 4 days ago.
Oh yeah, we caught one too.
I was proud of myself.
I was sitting. We were watching TV, and we had all the lights off because we were watching a movie, and all of a sudden, I saw something run. And my wife thought, I'm like, something just ran under the couch. She's like, "No, it did." I go, "Oh no, something just ran under the couch here." And at first I'm like, "Please don't be a mouse," like, you know. But it was one of those little lizards. We were able to catch it.
I trapped it.
That's good. See, you're not scared of those.
No, I mean, I don't want it crawling on me. But I don't want it crawling on me. Like, you know, I did a study abroad in Puerto Rico one year, and those things are everywhere in Puerto Rico. I mean, it's a tropical island.
Yeah.
And we were taking a bus to Ponce, which is the place named after Ponce de Leon. And we were on the bus, and it was so cold on the bus, and I kept saying, "It is so cold on this bus. I feel like my arm hairs are tickling me." And I was talking to one of my classmates. I looked down, one of those things was on my arm. Spencer, I almost flipped that bus over on the highway. I just went nuts. I was freaking out so bad that my little professor, this short little 5'2" lady from Peru, came up and stomped that thing to death. And then I look up, and all my classmates are eating crackers and stuff. And I lost my mind. I was like, "Put the food down. They're gonna come looking for more." I don't think lizards eat crackers, but I don't know. They probably eat anything.
I'll have to look that up later. Do lizards eat crackers?
I don't mind. If they stay away from me. I can see them and not be terrified, but if I see a snake, that's a whole different thing. I'm not going near it. I will move. I will burn the house down.
Well, before we get to our question of the week, which we ask at the end of every episode, anything we haven't touched on, anything you want to mention or talk about or throw out to the universe while you're here?
I don't think so. I mean, I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, I told you to be simple.
Yeah, you did.
That was the thing I said when you told me that about fear. I said, "Don't worry, this one's easy. We just talk about the issues, and we try to keep it simple, and just have the conversation, because
I've enjoyed the conversation.
It's important to have these conversations." And I did this in part because people need to get to know people in our community, what you're doing, who you are, that there's other people out there besides my bubble, their bubble.
Yeah, they need to know, one, that there's good things happening in our city, and two, that there's good people in our city. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't need to bring on there's lots of good people in this community who have lots of platforms. And I'm like, they're great. They can keep using them. I'm trying to bring people in here. So I tell everybody, you got people who, either people listen, you want to be on the show, let's go.
Yeah.
Or if you got ideas for people I should be reaching out to in the community, let me know, because I would love to have them sitting here with me.
Awesome.
All right. So my question of the week is, the filing deadline passed this week for everyone had to file to run for local office. In Topeka, we have District 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 are up for re-election. We're doing the odd years, and then the mayor's up for re-election. Current mayor's not running. I don't talk about it much on this podcast because this is not an election podcast. I am running for mayor. There's no secret there, so I don't want to pretend like, oh, there's a mayor's race. But
right.
And we have one seat that is uncontested, District 5, Brett Kell. No one ran against him, so he's got a free ride. Good for him. Everyone else, there's at least several other people in the race. So my question, though, is pretty simple this week. It is, do you plan to vote in the upcoming municipal elections? We post this question every week on our Facebook page, on our Instagram page to get feedback from people and get responses. I will say this will be my 4th election since I've been in Topeka. I lost one of them. I tell people, see, they don't always want to vote for me. That's cool, right? But turnout is always really low in these races, in general, these municipal races, because there's nothing else on the ballot. There's no presidential election. There's no gubernatorial election. There's no statewide races. You literally have to be keyed in enough to know that on August 5th, there's a primary for city council and school districts. And that's it. And just getting people, unlike when there's the big national or state races, you're not going to see a bunch of commercials on the TV or a bunch of radio ads that remind you every day, go vote, go vote, go vote. You know, everyone's going to put out some signs eventually and be at events and hand out their pamphlets, and hopefully you go to their websites or social media. But turnout is always incredibly low, and that's not great. I mean, I want people to be engaged, and I want people to show up to the poll and vote for somebody. I hope it's always me, right? But if it's not, that's okay. I still want people to be engaged, and so I'm just trying to keep promoting it the next couple months to remind people, go vote,
Right.
because local elections. Every election matters, but I will tell you, local elections matter more than the others in the sense that we can fix your problems quicker. We can also create more problems quicker, right? But we meet, like city council here, we meet 3 times a month. I can fix something pretty quick if I really need to, and your daily life is impacted by a lot of the decisions we make. So it always amazes me, and I get why people want to go for the sexy presidential races, but I'm like, these ones really matter.
So I will say this, and I'm going to be transparent. I'm one of those people who never really paid a lot of attention to local elections. However, I will say that in the last year since I started my business, and I have a better understanding of the relationship between business and the city, and how they work interchangeably. And so I've kind of been educated about the importance and, like you said, the impact that our city council members can have and our mayor can have, and city officials. And so I don't remember ever voting for like a mayor or a city council person. I have voted for a school board superintendent.
Sure, that makes more sense.
A school superintendent or something like that. But I'm gonna change that because I see what's happening in Topeka, and I like it. And if I want to see the kind of change that I want, then as a responsible citizen, then I have to do what I can to make a difference in what's happening in the city. I can't not vote and then complain about what's happening in the city. I mean, we're good at that as Americans, but so, and I do agree with what you said about, what the city council does, what the city government does. It has a more direct impact on my everyday life than what, the president is doing in the White House.
Right.
It takes a long time for those whatever's
filter down to us, right?
Exactly.
I mean, Congress moves slow. Yeah. That's just the process. And the legislature only meets 90 days a year, so they can do a lot in that 90 days. But once they leave, now there's state agencies that have an impact on stuff. But as a governing body, the local city councils and county commissions, we make a lot of the day-to-day stuff. And people understand that, but then they don't get as engaged in the process, and then they wonder, how did this Yahoo get elected? Or even once those people have been elected, and I've said this on other podcasts, there's decisions I've made. I wish I was perfect. I'm not. There's a few votes I look back on, I'm like, oops, I probably should have done something different, but I'm going to try to correct it the best I can. But I think having people engaged in those conversations matters too, because people do get frustrated. And I tell them they're not wrong. When people say, well, nobody listens to me, sometimes I'm like, I get why it feels like that. Because, I mean, it sounds braggy when I say it, but like I try to get out there. It's why I hold open office hours. It's why I do this. And I've had people tell me, you talk too much. You shouldn't talk so much, because the less they know about you, the easier it is for you to create the image that'll help you get elected. And I'm like,
I don't agree with that.
No, but I'm saying that, or I don't either. I'm saying that's a terrible way to walk through the process and to treat people who deserve more of you if you're going to run for office.
Well, and you want people to know the real you.
Well, yeah, and if they like it, awesome, and if they don't, that's cool too. Other people love me, and I'll be all right.
Exactly.
you know,
Well,
but
I'm
yeah.
one of those other people.
but
just
I
so
want
you
people
know.
I want people to get to know people. But I get it when they say, because I know there's lots of local elected officials who aren't engaged, and so it's frustrating. I totally get it. So hopefully we can break through some of that and let them know. We may not always agree, but we're gonna have the conversations. And we're gonna figure it out.
the ribbon cutting for the new middle school in Auburn.
I know.
And I saw some city officials out there, and that actually meant something
I
to
was
me.
trying. That's in my district, and I meant to get out there, but there was another event
Mhm.
with a former city councilman from Kansas City.
Have
who
you
was-
seen the school?
Oh yeah, it's
Oh,
amazing.
wow.
It is really nice.
I think we got the best middle school in the state of Kansas.
No, it's
now.
great.
It is
Yeah, it's
amazing.
nice. It's open. It's bright. It's got lots of windows.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of security features in it, which, again, that's one of those sad we have to do that, but they did a really good job of
Mhm.
making it a very safe school for kids and teachers. So they did a lot right out there.
They put a lot of thought into the design of it, and I just think, like you said, it's going to be good for kids. It's going to be good for students, teachers. It's going to be good for the district, and
Well, it
ultimately
shows
for the
growth. The
city.
fact that we needed another middle school in this town shows.
Yeah, we
there's
were
some
the
growth at
biggest
that
middle
age.
school in the state.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, you know how crazy it is to have 1,000,
I know.
11, 12, and
Packed into that.
13-year-olds in one building. It gets crazy.
I did say to them, this sounds silly, when they built the new middle school, I was like, good job, you put lots of bathrooms in here. That's a good, you need, don't, you know? They got them like down every hall, like, good job, good work.
One of the really things the teachers are excited about is how many windows.
I know, it's really nice,
So,
because it is so bright and open.
Get some natural lighting going on in there.
Yeah, which I think helps kids too.
I think
It
so,
helps
too.
teachers too, but I mean, it helps kids on a day-to-day just feel better when
Yeah.
there's sunlight. Not these gloomy days, but most days when
Yeah.
it's nice out.
Yeah.
Well, so that's the question of the week. Do you plan to vote in the upcoming municipal elections? Like I said, it'll be on the Facebook page, the Instagram. People can hit it up and answer it. And with that, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I might have a jar of jam for you one of these days.
I will just no jalapenos. Other than that, I'm
No
good with anything
jalapenos,
else.
no. My flavor of the month is black tie blackberry.
Oh, yeah. Now that you've eaten blackberries, you can appreciate the.
I made it for the wheelbarrow, and I liked it so much. I said this is gonna be my flavor of the month.
Yes, that's great. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
This has been the Civic Circus. Thank you, everybody.